Well, the deadline is in June. Last year it was June, so it was the first round. The application for Columbia University MBA J-Term is approaching. So, well, what is J-Term in the first place? Well, normal August entry. Well, there is also a route for admission in the fall of 2026. So, well, what is the difference between J-Term and August entry? And what is important for passing Columbia MBA? And then, first of all, I will summarize what kind of career awaits you after you get an MBA at Columbia and whether you can get the career you want. Please read to the end. Today, I would like to talk with DJ, the CEO of Alpha, and myself at EMI. What about TJ? He went to Chicago Booth Business School, then to Goldman Sachs' IBD, and now he's at Alpha, and he's been doing MBA for 17 years. And like DJ, he's also in finance, investment banking, and more recently, asset management hedge funds. At Alpha, there are people who have worked at investment banks before going on to work at fund. Columbia's MBA is in finance. Yeah, it's one of the schools that's known for that. Plus, being in New York, it's close to the financial district. There are also people who intern while attending Columbia. I went from a career in healthcare to a graduate school of education at Columbia, and now I'm with Alpha and Alpha Academy. Well, Alpha Academy is in the US. You can get support for your GMAT, TOEFL, IELTS at Alpha Academy for $99. So please use the Academy to prepare for the test. First of all, regarding Columbia, I think the main reasons people pursue an MBA are often for career advancement, changing locations, or switching industries. Everyone has their own goals, but I'd like to start by looking at the most concerning aspect, career outcomes. This information is available on the Columbia Business School website. Last year, this is the latest employment report we have, but it's not easy to see where people end up after their MBA. So I'd like to take a look together at what the actual outcomes are. So, yes, this is an overview of graduates, yes, compensation. Well, if we look at the summary of salary, the base salary is the median is $175,000. The highest is, $370,000. Well, it's pretty expensive. And then there's the sign-in bonus. So I guess a lot of companies give you a sign-on bonus in your first year after joining the company. I did an internship at a foreign consulting firm. And when I got a job at that strategic consulting firm, I got an offer letter. And if you worked at a company for a year in that first year, you'd get 3 or 4 bonuses. I think it's often set up this way. So in the first year, you have this base salary plus a signing bonus of 3 to 4 months. And if there are any additional bonuses, those would be added as well. So it could be around $200,000, right? Yeah, as I always say, it's usually around $200,000 on average after graduation. Well, in this case, that's the median. That's pretty standard. People often talk about the return on investment for an MBA. Some people say that it's a fleet that pays, but I think it's obvious if you take a look at this. So, regarding where everyone is working, many people end up getting jobs in the US. There are certainly those who were originally working in the US and then went to Columbia, but overall, the employment rate is quite high, with nearly 80% of graduates finding jobs in the US. So, here we have a breakdown by industry, and it seems that consulting and finance are the most common fields. Finance seems to be more prevalent, with consulting at 30% and financial services at 35.9%, making it the largest sector. Even during the pandemic, there are various job types available, but private equity stands out as having the highest representation among them. Yeah, I think there are definitely people who go straight from an M&A experience to an MBA and then move into private equity. So I'd like to take a look at the companies together with Erisumi-san and DJ as well. Here we have the top employers, and the details are quite extensive. So here we have the internships. In the case of an MBA, internships are usually long-term, lasting about 1 or 2 months, and they are often paid. So that's what we mean by internships. Well, here we see a lot of top consulting firms and investment banks such as Porio, McKinsey BCG, Amazon, PwC, Bain.jp, Morgan, Deloitte, Citi, and Bank of America. So for internships, we see a lot of consulting firms like Amazon, McKinsey, Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, and Bank of America, which are all top-tier investment banks. All right, TJ-san, go ahead.
All right, please go ahead. So, Columbia's MBA program starts in January, specifically the January 2026 intake. There are quite a few people preparing their applications for the upcoming intake. Columbia is, of course, a top school, and its location in New York is unbeatable. As you can see here, many consulting firms like McKinsey, BCG, Bain, and Deloitte are involved, as well as top investment banks like Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, Morgan Stanley, and Bank of America. Yeah, there are a lot of people going into top investment banks like Citi, as well as into GAFA companies like Amazon and Apple. Recently, I've been hearing from current students and alumni that there's been an increase in people with finance-oriented careers. This is especially true with the rise of AI and technology. We are now in the age of finance. I think there are a lot of people who go to places like that, and Columbia in particular has a lot of programs, such as a master's in computer science, data science, and business analytics, and they have a good balance of business and technology finance. You can get that business, and of course, the location in New York is great. Regarding that, is it really a good job hunting? And even so, internships, well, you don't have to go to so many places. It's really a walk-in. You can get anywhere in just a few minutes by train. The accessibility is really good, and the networking opportunities in New York are quite easy to tap into. I really encourage everyone to give it a try. As for the January term, I'll mention this later, but it's open to younger people in their 20s, as well as those in their 30s, making it relatively easier for mid-career professionals to get in, so it's a great option. So the deadlines are quite early. They've moved up significantly since last year. The application window starts in June. So if you're starting now, you only have about 3 months or so. Plus, there's the option to go through an executive assessment without needing to take the TOEFL, which is a nice feature. Generally, people in the Alpha group tend to take the GMAT. You can study with Alpha, and usually you can get a good score on the executive assessment in about 1 to 2 months. So you write your essays, resume, and recommendations, and then you apply. If you get through the interview and are accepted, that's usually how the process goes. For those who want to go to Columbia, I recommend consulting with Alpha early and starting your preparations as soon as possible. So, Emi-san, could you please explain the application process and an overview?
Yes. As I mentioned at the beginning, Columbia has 2 entrances. So there are admissions in August and January. August is what is called the General MBA Fall Admission. So it's August. Well, there's an entrance ceremony in September, and then from there, it's a year. Well, after 1 semester and 2 semesters, you do an internship during the summer vacation. So, with the August entry, you have a full year before graduation. This allows for a longer internship, which is great for those looking to make a career change. I think most people who want to change careers tend to go for the August entry. The January entry starts in January, and the timing of enrollment differs from those who started in August. However, during the summer, you take intensive classes to catch up. Graduation will happen at the same time. So the duration of study is shorter, which means that for mid-career professionals, the time they need to take off from their careers is minimized. One of the characteristics of the January term is that the duration of study is shorter. Yes, while there aren't long-term internships, since Columbia is located in New York, as PJ mentioned, there are quite a few students who actually do internships in the evenings or at night while attending classes. As I mentioned earlier, the duration of study is shorter, and as a result, the average age of students in the January entry is generally a bit higher compared to the August entry. So I think the average age is particularly higher since it's an accelerated program. The study plan is about 1 year, 210 and 4 months. Yes, that's about 6 months shorter compared to the 2-year program. So you can finish early, that's the point. So for mid-career professionals in their 30s, as well as those with corporate sponsorships, the January intake is quite popular since they don't necessarily need internships and don't have to focus heavily on job hunting. So when is the application deadline? Well, the current cycle isn't completely over yet, so we don't have the exact dates yet. But based on last year's schedule, the deadline was June 18th. So you have about 3 months left. Well, there's also a round 2, but I think round 1 is definitely easier to get into at Columbia. Not many people prepare to apply for round 1 compared to round 2. It's relatively small compared to round 2, so it's quite early. The general MBA round 1 is usually in September, so to complete your application in June, you need to start preparing quite early. So if you start preparing now, you have a chance to apply early and pass. There are a lot of seats available. As for the exam, Columbia does not require TOEFL IELTS. So I think it's very good news for people who have graduated from universities in countries where English is not the first language. What's more, you can take the exam with a test called the executive assessment. You choose one of these GMAT GRE executive assessment and submit it as a standardized test. But as you can see, the difficulty and volume of this executive assessment is less than half of the standard. It's based on the GMAT, but it was originally created specifically for executive MBA, so compared to tests for juniors, it doesn't have that many complicated math questions. So at Alpha, everyone can take the executive assessment in about 2 months. Some people can do it in as little as 1 month. Even if you're not that confident, you can prepare for 2 months. You can get a good score on the no section, so please leave your no section preparation to us. And there are other aspects to consider. You must prepare for the tests, but the key to success and acceptance is the essay. You need a strong essay strategy. Even if you want to go to Columbia, having a clear long-term goal and ensuring consistency with what you've done in the past is vital. So this 1234, well, strategy is key. You also need to think about which other schools you're applying to. Hope you prepare thoroughly for your essays, resumes, and interviews so that you can secure your acceptance. Well, strategy is important. You also need to consider which other schools you're applying to. I really want you to prepare thoroughly for your guest interactions, essays, resumes, and interviews so that you can secure your acceptance. So, for the January intake, yes, the junior entry is approaching quickly, and the intake for 2025 is almost at its end. There's a final round in April, so if anyone wants to apply this year, please feel free to consult with us. You don't have to wait until the fall of 2026 to enroll in January. I think this is definitely a chance. You want to seize. Do you have any comments?
No, really. Actually, J-Term and Columbia are very flexible and can accelerate your business quite a bit. There's also a regular internship period, so it's definitely possible to do internships. Since the program finishes in just under a year and a half, I think you can save quite a bit on costs. Plus, getting a job in the US is much easier, especially in a place like New York. The networking opportunities are strong in fields like consulting, finance, and with companies like GAFA, Google, Apple, Facebook, Amazon, as well as in various funds. It's very strong, and then you can go on to financial engineering from that MBA. You can also take dual MBA and data science or business analytics. Well, you can have a lot of choices, and the job market is very strong. And Alpha, well, it's not just Columbia, but Columbia, Chicago, etc. They get students accepted into top schools every year, and they also have job hunting after that. There are many people who have successfully navigated the job search in the US with our support. We have the know-how and network in that area, so for those who want to give it a try, I encourage you to start preparing early. Based on last year, it was June 18th, right? However, June 18th is the so-called J-term. So the application starts then. The school itself begins in January, and for international students, there are also visa considerations. In the past, the timeline was a bit later, but it has really moved up since last year. So if you're in your 20s, 30s, or 40s and want to apply for Columbia's J-Term, I highly recommend reaching out to Alpha early for consultation.